Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about conquering change and managing change as we age because it's such a big deal. We need to be able to navigate change the best we can because it's inevitable that there'll be some changes as we age. So today we're going to talk about some strategies of how to understand when your body is struggling a bit with change and some things you can do to overcome that struggle and be successful at managing any change that comes with aging. So for those of you that haven't had a chance to meet me, my name is Jolyn. I'm the owner of Edmonton 55. I used to be a registered nurse and a home care case manager. I worked in seniors housing on management teams in non-for-profit as well as for-profit organizations. I opened a new residence in Edmonton, and I'm a seniors real estate specialist with Schmidt Realty. So really, I manage housing needs from aging in place, staying in home, making a transition, or having to sell possibly your last home. So today we're going to talk about what is active aging, the stereotypes of aging, how fear can stop us, how to overcome that fear, and how mindfulness can actually help us manage change and aging well. And a couple little tidbits to keep improving and keep growing as we go. So let's start here. Active aging. I totally believe in active aging because this is really the mindset that separates those that dwell and wither away and those that are vibrant and healthy and enjoying their adult years. So active aging is about staying positively engaged in all aspects of life, which ultimately benefits both the individual and broader society. I'm actually currently reading a book that talks about gratitude, it talks about rest, it talks about joy, and how those factors are actually so important for our health and our well-being. And that holds true as we age. Now, a lot of us want to manage change because we want to be able to overcome any hurdles that come our way to be successful at aging in place. So when I'm talking about aging in place, I'm meaning having the health and social supports and services you need to live safely and independently in your home or in your community for as long as you wish or are able. So the keys there are safely and independently as long as you wish, as long as you are able. And so we have to acknowledge that there will be a time that we're too frail to live on our own. There will be a time that we have a health challenge and we can't manage as independently and may have to accept some help. There's a lot of things that can prevent us from aging in place. It's about as long as you are able. And so the better we can manage changes, the better we can plan and prepare for it, the better our chances at successfully aging in place for as long as possible. So let's talk about change, because most people, when they hear the word change, it instills some fear into them. And so these are all words that you can kind of train yourself to stop and think and go, what's changing and how do I feel about those changes? So other words for fear can be worry, anxiety, uncomfortable, undecided, stuck. And basically, those are all emotions that your body's going, whoa, something's going on. And it might be that it's unfamiliar. It might be that you are legitimately scared. It might be that you don't know how to navigate. This is your body's warning signal. But a warning signal for change doesn't mean that change is bad. It's just a warning signal. It's a yellow light. So, stereotypically, we don't talk positively about aging. We talk a lot of negativity about aging. So, some of the things we fear or we generally talk about not wanting to experience is growing old, losing independence, having to rely on others. We may fear financial concerns of aging, health concerns. We might be just fearful of the unknown, or we might fear the past, the present, or the future. So, all these stereotypes have kind of put us on guard to be worried about what concerns there are. And we might be fearful and we might interpret those feelings of a red light, a stop doing what you're doing, when really the things we're afraid of we might not control and we can't necessarily stop them. So, how our brain makes decisions is important to understand the psychology of change. We are programmed for comfort and familiarity. You've probably heard of the fight or flight response, and that's really from the caveman era of, oh my gosh, we're about to be attacked by a saber-toothed tiger. We either run or we fight it. What do we do? And we have little teeny tiny seconds to figure this out. And so when we're not in that fight or flight mode, our brain goes, let's just stay comfortable. Let's just do the things we already know how to do, because our brain is programmed for efficiency. So it's actually programmed to keep things easy because that's the most efficient way. Then we have these gut feelings. These are often in the pit of our stomach, something isn't right. I don't know what it is, but something's amiss. And our gut feelings are actually our subconscious, because our subconscious works 24/7 and we can't alter our subconscious as much. But our awake brain, we can. And our awake brain, we can influence. We can go, I want to be lazy today. I don't want to work out today. And our awake brain will follow. Our subconscious brain does things on autopilot, including feel emotions. And so when we get those kind of gut feelings, that's our key that there is something we need to check in on, that the comfort and familiarity might not be right, that the brain and the gut have two different thoughts, and we need to make a decision as to which one we're going to follow. So whenever you get into that place of you feel stuck, you feel fearful, you aren't sure how to navigate a change, it's because your brain and your gut, your brain and your subconscious are at odds. There's two, it's kind of like a fork in the road. That gut feeling is a symbol that there's a fork in a road and you have to choose one of the paths. And which way are you going? Or are you staying put and not going anywhere? And so fear can easily stop us, because instead of choosing one of those paths, choosing a direction, choosing a decision, we stay put. We don't go forwards, we don't go backwards, but we do not make progress. And that is the biggest pitfall for aging. I see so many people stop making decisions, stop planning a move, stop taking care of their health out of fear. And it actually quickly snowballs and puts them in a worse position. We have a choice. There is always an option to be fearful and stay or get stuck, is how a lot of people describe, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do. Or we choose resilience, and that's a choice to move forward in one form or another. So, how do you move from fear to resilience? So, one of the questions I love to ask is, what do you have to let go of to let blank in? If you're fearful of your health, what do you have to let go of so that you can move forward in health decisions? What is no longer working for you? If you can't get in and out of your home due to mobility, so you can't go to the senior center, you can't go see friends, something's not working for you. And it's either your mobility or your house. And if you can't change your mobility, maybe you can change where you live so it is something accessible that you can safely get in and out of and still get out to meet with friends and family. What are you holding on to? This one I hear a lot in regards to our homes because we've lived in them 20, 30, 40, 50, sometimes even 60 years. And we don't want to let go of that home, but that home is no longer serving us. It's not helping us. It's actually hindering us. What do you fear will happen if you let go? This is another great question. If you made a move to someplace more accessible, what's the worst that would happen? Well, the worst that would happen is maybe you don't like it there. So you move again to somewhere different. It's not oftentimes an end of the world scenario. But what will happen if you don't let go? If you don't do the exercises recommended by your physiotherapist, if you don't make a plan for moving into retirement living, if you don't make the renovations to your home to age in place, then what will happen? And it might be that you land in hospital. It might be that you land in nursing home because you can't take care of yourself. It might be that your kids have to take over power of attorney to make decisions on the house for you. What will happen if you stay stuck in fear and don't move into resiliency? And what is possible when you let go? I've had individuals, very distraught about a possible move to assisted living or nursing home. But when we started talking about the possibilities, well, there's regular bus outings, and you don't get that now. You would have neighbors that you could see just by stepping outside your door. So you'd have friends and connections. There's art classes, there's language classes, there's movie nights, things that you don't do now that you'd get to experience. So, what could be possible if you let go of those fears? So, our brain has another fun part of that fight or flight. And it's a part of our brain that it's our reticulating part of our brain. It decides what we focus on. Have you ever had an instance where you went and you saw a magazine of a red car, and then that day all you saw was red cars everywhere? The number of red cars hasn't changed, just what your brain is focusing on, the data that it's actually sending to you has changed. So when you focus on your fears and your limiting beliefs, you actually draw attention to them. They get bigger. They seem harder to overcome when you focus on them. So as we age, we have to move away from focusing on our feelings to focusing on our actions. So if you know that you have to make a move, then what are the actions you can focus on? I need to start downsizing and right sizing my house. I need to get rid of excess items. I need to research where I'm going to move to. I might want to have my children come and join in what I'm participating in. What do you focus on in terms of the activity to be able to draw that attention to? So what do you do to focus on the action instead of the feeling? Because the amazing thing is once we focus on actions, our actions actually limit our fears. It's what quiets those limiting beliefs, those negative thoughts, those fears, those anxieties. The results from doing your actions actually quiet our fears. And so having an action plan is so important to overcoming the changes for you. So this ultimately, when we're talking about overcoming changes, overcoming fears, it's really about how we can change our mindset, how we can shift from fear to confidence, how we can shift from fear to action, how we can shift from feeling stuck and not moving to movement. Because those actions and those results from those actions give you confidence, which gives you more strength to take more action. But, I've always kind of teased movement is the key to everything. Movement's the key to health. Movement's the key to keeping our joints going. Movement and training our brain keeps it active. But movement in decision making, movement in despite of fear also strengthens us. It's so important. So when you find yourself feeling stuck, when you feel like you can't know what to do, you don't want to do anything, change is scary, you're fearful, you're anxious, you're worried, how do you get out of that to change your mindset? And the first thing is awareness and stopping and going, why do I feel this way? Why am I anxious? Why am I worried? Why am I fearful? Because sometimes it's just a reaction we're used to. That's how we respond to everything through our life. Sometimes there is something to be fearful of. And sometimes we look at the situation going, there's actually nothing to be fearful of. Why am I, silly me? I need to, stop being anxious about this because there's nothing to be anxious about. There's people that will guide me. There's people who will help me. My children will do this with me. I'm not in this alone. There's nothing to be anxious about. The next piece of getting unstuck, once you're aware of the feelings and maybe why you're feeling that way or why you're feeling stuck, is accepting that that's okay. We talked a little bit about fear and anxiety is actually more of a yellow light versus a red light, in relation to traffic lights. And I say that because I'm reading Matthew McConaughey's book called Green Lights. And it's about how in our life, there's green lights, yellow lights, and red lights, and they each have a different purpose. And fear and change, most people take it as a red light, when really it's just a yellow light. Proceed with caution, take a look around. So accept that things are changing, accept that things are new, accept that there is something different happening. And then work on creating the actions to get through that decision, to get through that change, to overcome. Because having a plan, creating actions is really the secret to overcoming any change and any fear. And do small. It's better to have 10 small little steps than 2 really big steps to take, because sometimes when we're stuck, we have this mental paralysis that it's really takes a lot of effort to get going and to do any action. So the smaller the actions, the better our likelihood of actually completing it. And then to really cement your new mindset about your change or what you're stuck with or what you're fearful of is find the joy in it. And this one is actually the easiest one of all of this. Have you ever had a friend or family member go, "Oh, I wish I did this 5 years ago"? And it's because they've actually found the joy, they've embraced the joy in that change that they dreaded so much. And finding that joy actually came really easy. So sometimes you have to see through the change, see through the fear to project and predict what your joy is going to be at the other end and focus on that. Because once you overcome that hurdle, once you overcome that change, you're going to realize it wasn't so bad. And all the big scary things you thought were going to happen probably didn't happen. So, in changing our mindset, what would life look like if you had a joyful, accepting mindset versus a fearful and stuck mindset? You might be surprised because research is telling us that people that have a joyful mindset, that find the positives in things, even in really bad circumstances, they find the lessons, they find the purpose. We live longer with that mindset. We live healthier with that mindset. We have less heart disease. We have less depression. They're finding so many medical findings in living a joyful life. You know, I have a friend that had got laid off and then got rehired back in that job, and they weren't happy and they hated it. And they eventually found a new job, but they were still complaining about that old job and how horrible of a place it was. When I kind of stopped them and said, but that job had purpose. Look at the contacts you made, look at the skills you gained, looked at the opportunities you had and what that gave you, because that's actually been a stepping block for this next job you're doing now. And you couldn't do the job you're doing now if it wasn't for the learning of that past job. They hated that job, but they were continuing to carry that hate because they hated that they wasted a year of their life. Well, when you look at that situation with a joyful mindset, no, it was a year of training for this new job that they do enjoy, that there is more joyfulness about. And now they're more joyful in that job because they're not negative about the past job. A joyful mindset can filter into every aspect of your life. So, how do we conquer change to age well? We need to keep moving our mind. We need to keep learning. We need to keep moving when we're fearful. We need to evaluate and embrace them. I always say, instead of trying to find pros and cons in choices, look at risks versus benefits. I know it doesn't sound like much, but it is. It's actually really different, and our brain looks at it really differently. So if you're looking at, I might have to sell the house to get into a more accessible condo. The benefits: better accessibility. I can come and go when I want. There's craft rooms and libraries and workshops, or even a swimming pool there. Risks might be, I might be paying about the same as much as my house. I might have less square footage. But that might be it. That might be it. When we look at benefits versus the risks, what's the real threat to us versus a con? You know, what would be negative about this in our mind? It takes the emotion out of it and it puts the practicality in it. So when you're conquering a change, when you're dealing with fears and anxieties, instead of writing pros and cons, write benefits versus risks and keep it objective. Plan and prepare to ease your mind. As we talked about our brain at the start being programmed for comfort and familiarity, it's programmed for comfort and familiarity for efficiencies. When we are planned and prepared, our brain sees that as super efficient. So when we plan to age in place, when we have a plan for the services we will bring into the home, when we have a plan for the renovations we need to do, when we have a plan for how we will stay connected in the community, our brain goes, whew, don't have to spend energy worrying about that anymore. And our brain relaxes. And we can put things into action without much effort and without fear and emotion getting in the way. And really, how we conquer change is realizing that change is inevitable. Change happens every day, little by little, even if it's just another gray hair on your head. But you are constantly changing, and your health is constantly changing, and your life is constantly changing. But in all those changes, find the joy. So if you haven't been to one of my other presentations, I just want to share the major 8 what ifs to plan for to age in place well. Prepare for a broken leg or hip, prepare for a broken arm, prepare for using a walker or a wheelchair, know how to manage any slow debilitating disease that you may have now or have a family history for, have a plan for losing your driver's license, have a plan for decreased vision, and have a plan for the death of a spouse or a family caregiver you rely on. When you have a plan for these things, change isn't so scary. When the change happens or the health situation happens, you and your brain can turn back to your plan and start putting into action so that you don't get bogged down in emotion. So I hope that's giving you some really good insight into how our bodies and our minds manage change and how we can turn that red light into a green light and how we can see change as a yellow light instead of a red light. If you need more resources for aging in place or active aging, there's lots on my website at edmonton55.com. There's an event calendar for other learning opportunities. There's a housing directory, and I do have my newsletter where you can become an active ager. There's more free seminars coming up, so why selling in winter can be a good thing. It's actually one of my favorite times to list a home for sale, and so I'll share with you why. And then on Tuesday, January 26th, we're talking with Meals on Wheels about their meal and grocery options. So for aging in place, you need to have those options in your back pocket so that if you ever need them, it doesn't stop you from living independently in your home. So come join us as we talk with Kristen there. And you can sign up at edmonton55.com/upcoming-presentations. I do still have the downsizing challenge. It's over 6 months, once a week. There's resources for donating items. You get a once a week small challenge to work on to tackle room by room of your house. And you'll get some videos along the way. So you can sign up at edmonton55.com/downsizing-challenge. And then become a VIP active ager, and you can get my monthly newsletter, recordings of previous seminars. This will come back on there in a couple days as well, and you'll get access to exclusive planning worksheets. I do a number of consultations for those that are planning to stay at home, planning to move, don't know what they need help with, or are looking to buy or sell real estate. And I'll just leave this up here for a moment so that you've got my contact information. I do offer free half-hour consultations by phone just to get a sense of what your questions are and what your situation is. And from there, we can decide if any of my services would be relevant or if there's another more appropriate resource I can point you to. So I hope that's giving you some good insight. So in just a moment here, I'm going to stop I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll open this up if there's any other questions. So just give me a second here.